Hello, I'm HomoArrosor. Welcome to this explainer of the absolute architectural shift happening right now in global finance. Look, right now, as we sit here in July 2026, I am tracking a massive, irreversible geopolitical and financial rewiring. The fundamental architecture of global capital is being completely rebuilt right before our eyes. And the thing you have to understand is, this isn't just theory anymore. We have moved entirely away from academic white papers and pilot programs into live, production-grade, tokenized financial markets. The battle lines are completely drawn. On one side of the board, I observe the maritime powers aggressively building out an interconnected, frictionless digital ocean. On the other side, the continental powers are erecting massive, defensive monetary walls. Today, I'm going to dissect exactly how the United States, the United Kingdom, and Japan are executing a highly coordinated maritime strategy. They are moving to completely outmaneuver the sovereign fortresses being built by the Eurozone and China.
So let's look at the macroeconomic reality I'm tracking right now. It reveals a very clear, factual division in global finance. The entire global system is splintering right down the middle of the fourth industrial revolution, and you can see it beautifully illustrated right here. Take a look at the left side of this map. Spanning the globe, I'm observing what we call the maritime strategy. You have this incredibly fluid, interconnected network linking the United States, the United Kingdom, and Japan. This infrastructure runs entirely on market-driven expansion, dollar-pegged stablecoins, and globally interoperable standards. The capital just flows. But, conversely, look at the other side. Look at those distinct, heavy hexagonal structures completely walling off the Eurozone and China. This is the continental strategy. These are strictly state-driven ledgers. They rely on central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs, designed explicitly to defend their borders and enforce strict monetary sovereignty. It's a very simple dynamic. The maritime powers are connecting, while the continental powers are building walls. To truly understand how this global rewiring operates, we are going to walk through this in a very specific sequence. First, we'll dive into the UK's digital Big Bang. Second, we'll look at the DTCC and how Brexit has been completely redesigned. Third, we are going to examine the Eurozone's sovereign fortress. Fourth, we'll head over to see Japan's role as the Asian gateway. Fifth, I'll show you the new unified maritime network. And finally, we will break down the absolute ultimate economic bottleneck in all of this, KYC silos. Let's jump right into Section 1, the UK Digital Big Bang. I am watching London execute an absolutely massive structural overhaul of its wholesale financial markets. And I need to be clear here, this is not a test. This is not an experiment. This is a live, production-ready market restructuring happening as we speak. The crucial pivot occurred precisely on July 13, 2026. On that day, the UK government released the Wholesale Digital Markets Champion Report. What they did was organize a highly operational task force of 54 global financial institutions. We are talking about heavyweights. BlackRock, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, the DTCC, Circle, they are all at the table, and they are legally mandated to execute live transactions. Literally on that exact same day, HSBC officially passed Gate 2 of the Digital Securities Sandbox, the DSS. Now, Gate 1 was just preparation, but Gate 2 means live production-grade settlement activity is legally authorized. Furthermore, the UK has laid out a definitive, non-negotiable timeline to issue Digit. Digit is a native digital UK government bond, and it is going live by the first quarter of 2027. This is the absolute transition from conceptual tokenization straight into live institutional production. Now, the specific transaction that this 54-institution task force is targeting first is the end-to-end tokenized repo. If you know finance, you know a repo or a repurchase agreement is the absolute bedrock of global institutional finance. It's how the world gets its daily liquidity. Digitizing it requires absolute perfection across 8 very specific layers. I've broken down the exact flow for you here. It starts at step 1 with legal rights tokenization of Digit or traditional gilts. Next, step 2 is official collateral recognition. That means the token is actually accepted by the central bank as real collateral. Then comes step 3, delivery versus payment execution, or DVP. This ensures the asset and the cash move simultaneously, no counterparty risk. Step 4, this all settles via stablecoin or central bank cash settlement. Moving to step 5, interoperable ledger connection links these different blockchain environments seamlessly. All of this results in step 6, UK legal finality. It's done and legally binding. Step 7, KYC and AML identity verification ensures every party involved is fully compliant. And finally, step 8, the system achieves full collateral mobility and margin management. By executing this exact 8-step flow, the UK isn't just doing a trade, they are building a fully operational microcosm of the entire future digital financial system.
Moving on to Section 2, DTCC and Brexit redesign. So the UK is absolutely not acting in isolation here. What they are doing is deploying the exact same architectural operating system as the United States, creating what I call a systemic isomorphism. Let's look at the US side. The Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation, the DTCC, basically the plumbing of US capital markets, holds over $114 trillion in assets. Their next-generation tokenization service has its soft launch scheduled for July 15, 2026. Structurally, the US and UK systems mirror each other perfectly. Look at the pillars. On the US side, you have US Treasuries and the digital dollar via USDC. On the UK side, directly reflecting this, you have digit tokenized gilts and pound stablecoins. Both sides are bound together by a shared network of over 50 institutional players. They are literally the exact same working groups on both sides of the Atlantic. I see the UK taking the globally trusted, battle-tested standards of the DTCC and applying them directly to London's native legal environment. They are creating one unified architectural mirror.
And this brings us to the fascinating geopolitical reality of Brexit. Think about the old era. London functioned as the gateway inside the European single market's legal wall through passporting rights. But post-Brexit, the UK has completely redesigned London. It now operates as the interoperable digital port strictly outside that European wall. The strategic play here is incredibly clear and incredibly aggressive. The UK is outcompeting European law with pure liquidity. By offering deeper liquidity pools, 24/7 cross-border tokenized repos, and frictionless foreign exchange outside the heavy Eurozone regulations, European capital naturally gravitates there. It routes straight through London to access the DTCC's tokenized US assets. London has perfectly positioned itself as the vital digital gateway connecting that walled-off European capital directly to the open digital ocean. That perfectly sets up Section 3, the Eurozone sovereign fortress. Meanwhile, just across the English Channel, the European continent is taking a highly defensive posture. Now, Europe is not rejecting tokenization, but they are strictly controlling it to protect their sovereignty. They have systematically built an outermost legal moat. You know it as the MiCA regulation, designed to heavily regulate crypto assets and stablecoins. Inside that moat, they're launching the Pontus system in Q3 2026. Pontus explicitly forces private distributed ledger technology assets to bridge directly to central bank money for settlement. They don't want private stablecoins running the show. At the very foundation of this is Appia, the ultimate unified European ledger. This fortress on your screen is explicitly engineered for one thing: strategic autonomy. It is designed to deflect US-led infrastructures and private dollar stablecoins like USDC. The European Central Bank's clear mandate here is to ensure that European capital, European settlement rails, and European data are defended by locking all of that capital strictly within state-driven, controlled ledgers. Let's shift our focus globally for Section 4, Japan as Asian Gateway. Moving over to Asia, I see the exact same maritime strategy being deployed by the UK, but this time it's being executed by Japan. Japan has made some incredibly definitive moves recently. Financial giant SBI has explicitly laid out its 2026 strategy to entirely dominate the foreign exchange bridge between US dollar stablecoins and yen stablecoins. I am actively watching their integration of USDC and JPYSC, that's the yen stablecoin, across Visa networks and major retail infrastructure. Japan is building a massive cross-currency settlement engine purely to capture that foreign exchange yield. Furthermore, on July 8, 2026, a major consortium that included SBI and Daiwa executed a real-world live delivery versus payment transaction, and they did it brilliantly. They kept the legal rights of the asset safely on a domestic permissioned blockchain in Japan, but they mirrored that token on the public Ethereum blockchain. Why? So they could settle instantly in USDC with international investors. It's the perfect hybrid approach. The physical routing of this Asian capital is highly deliberate, and you can see it mapped out right here. It begins at the Tokyo node. This is driven by the ProgMat initiative, which is actively tokenizing Japanese government bonds, JGBs, for T+0 instantaneous cross-border repos. Local banks inject yen stablecoins into the system. This liquidity then flows through secure, dedicated pipeline directly down to the Singapore node. Singapore acts as the global distribution bridge. I find this architectural structure absolutely brilliant. It preserves domestic legal rights and regulatory safety strictly within Japan's borders, while simultaneously utilizing Singapore's crypto-friendly public Ethereum and USDC clearing infrastructure to distribute globally. Through this mechanism, Japan safely anchors the entire Asian corridor, connecting its massive domestic scale directly into the global maritime network. This brings us to Section 5, synthesizing all of this into the new maritime network.
When you synthesize the US, the UK, and the Japanese maneuvers together, I see the formation of a unified, highly functioning digital empire. Look at the three massive structures on screen. At the apex is the ocean. That's the United States. The US is providing the international settlement unit via the digital dollar. They provide the apex collateral via US treasuries, and they set the baseline technological standards via the DTCC. To the left of the ocean is the Western port, the United Kingdom. The UK routes European capital, provides the premier FX markets, and maintains deep, globally recognized legal trust. To the right is the Eastern port, Japan. Japan is routing Asian capital and providing incredibly high-quality JGB collateral at a massive domestic scale. What we are looking at is a modern digital echo of maritime imperialism. Except it doesn't occupy physical territory. It expands by controlling the interoperable standards, dominating the stablecoin routing, and operating the digital ports that all global capital must inevitably flow through.
To permanently cement this reality in your mind, I have diagnosed the exact factual contrast between these two systems. Let's read through this table. Under its core philosophy, the Maritime network operates purely on market-driven expansion. In stark contrast, the Continental network relies strictly on state-driven sovereignty. Look at currency. The Maritime system happily uses the US dollar and private stablecoins like USDC. The Continental system mandates central bank digital currencies like the digital euro or the digital yuan. Technically speaking, the maritime powers utilize a deeply interoperable, messy but highly efficient mix of DTCC, Stellar, and both public and private chains. The continental powers build heavily closed, unified regional ledgers like Pontus and Appia. Ultimately, it comes down to purpose. The maritime network exists for global capital routing and yield extraction. The continental network exists strictly for defending internal capital and maintaining data autonomy. The lines are clearly, definitively drawn. Let's tackle the final piece of the puzzle in Section 6, KYC silos and economic reality.
While observing the build-out of this interoperable infrastructure, I've identified one final, massive friction point. The tokenized assets are ready. The stablecoin money can move freely and instantly across borders, but human and corporate regulatory compliance data simply cannot. As explicitly recognized by the UK's 54-institution task force, Know Your Customer, anti-money laundering, and sanctions data remains heavily trapped in isolated jurisdictional silos. Think about it. Every single time a transaction crosses from the DTCC, routes through London, and lands in a European buyer's hands, the compliance checks must be redundantly processed by disparate, disconnected systems. This institutional KYC silo is the absolute final barrier preventing true, real-time, frictionless global liquidity. I view PiVerify as the structural, absolute solution to this exact economic reality. PiVerify functions as the universal KYC human layer. By establishing a unified, perfectly cross-border standard for verifying the regulatory suitability of humans, corporate entities, and individual wallets, it completely eliminates those isolated data silos. It essentially acts as the final digital passport control point. It allows the asset issuance layer, the trading layer, and the cash settlement layer to seamlessly connect with fully verified market participants anywhere on the globe. I see PiVerify as the necessary human gateway required to completely finalize this entire cross-border institutional network. Based on all these facts, I have laid out the absolute timeline of present and future economic realities. In the immediate window right now, from 2026 to 2027, tokenized sovereign bonds, meaning US Treasuries, UK gilts, and Japanese JGBs, and the repo markets that utilize them, will completely and utterly dominate the institutional space. They provide the necessary legal certainty and the pristine collateral to make the system run. Moving a bit further out, into 2027 to 2029, the focus heavily shifts to regional gateway competition. We are going to see fierce competition as London and Tokyo lock in their roles as the primary capital routing hubs of the world. Ultimately, the economic consequence is undeniable. The highly liquid, perfectly interoperable digital ocean, built by the US, the UK, and Japan, will relentlessly absorb capital that is seeking yield and efficiency. It will literally pull that capital out from behind the defensive walled gardens of the continent. The architecture of the Fourth Industrial Revolution's financial system isn't coming tomorrow. It is online today. The maritime networks are fully connected, continuously routing global liquidity through hyper-efficient digital ports, while the continental powers are forced to fortify their borders just to survive. The fundamental rules of capital have irreversibly changed. So I leave you with one final, urgent question regarding your own portfolio and your own strategy. Will your assets sail the open, highly liquid digital ocean, or will they remain trapped behind continental walls?